Are the Orioles simply an 80-win team? Fangraphs think so. Mike Elias, what can he do to change that projection? Hello, everybody. I'm Jon Leiberman. Welcome to Orioles Digest. So nice to have you along for the ride. If you don't know who I am, history and true crime TV, America's Most Wanted, done sports shows over the years for DraftKings and the like, wrote a true crime book, Howard Stern show, but the biggest thing, avid Orioles fan, the button from 1983 when we last won the championship. Please like, subscribe. You'll hear the latest news. You'll get some stories from the past, and you'll get insights from a guy who is from Baltimore and lives and breathes the Baltimore Orioles. So before we begin with this fact that Fangraphs is putting the Orioles as an 83-win team, and I want to get your thoughts on that. But before we do, I'd be remiss if we didn't remember this man, Richie Dower, second baseman on the Orioles' 1983 World Series team. Rich passed away recently, and he will be missed. Just always a stand-up guy, a fixture at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, and such an integral member of this 1983 World Series team. Thank you, Rich, for all you did for the city and for the Orioles, and thoughts and prayers with your family. Now, moving on from 1983 to present day, and there seems to be consensus that without Corbin Burnes, the Orioles are going to suffer a rather large drop-off. What do you think? Tell me in the comments now. Like, subscribe. Let's get up to 1,000 subscribers so we can go on this journey together for the rest of the season. But let's look at Fangraphs. Fangraphs, you can see the numbers. We were 91-71 last year. Fangraphs now putting the Orioles at 83-79. So a pretty precipitous drop-off in wins for the Orioles. Now, that being said, if we put it into perspective for a minute, nobody is really killing it here in the AL East. The Yankees projected at 88 wins, followed by the Red Sox there. But really, this is Fangraphs saying that the Orioles are a mediocre team heading into this season. Do you believe that? Do you believe that the Orioles are a mediocre team? Do you believe the O's should be behind the Red Sox, as it is here, tied with the Rays, and just ahead of the Blue Jays? Do you believe that? Here's why I don't. Here's why I don't believe we're simply an 83-win team. And some of it has to do with, as Fangraphs points out, the depth. Look at this depth in the lineup in particular, but there's also depth at the starting pitching position as well. But the Orioles have a huge amount of depth. The bats will, in my opinion, produce this season. The bats will produce. I mean, you have Gunnar, you have Adley, you have Westy, you have Cowser, you have Mullins, Tyler O'Neill. I mean, the list goes on and on and on for bats. The lineup is stacked 1-9 for the most part. So I know you're going to say, yeah, John, but the question really is this: the pitching, the starting pitching. If these are the projected top 5 starters for the Orioles, Zach and Grayson, you could switch them there. Charlie Morton, a workhorse in the middle of the rotation. Dean, and then Sagano, who is an unknown, but if he performs the way he did overseas, you could be looking at a heck of a season. Now, one thing that isn't taken into account here is Kyle Bradish returning, Tyler Wells returning, and what happens with John Means as a free agent. So those three things and those three factors add even more potential depth to this staff. Now, again, I know you're all saying, yeah, but we need a frontline starter who's replacing Corbin Burnes. So let's take a look at who's out there still from a free agent perspective. But before we do, fascinating statistic here, according to Fangraphs as well. The Orioles win over replacement. We are tied for the fourth best projected WAR in all of Major League Baseball. How do you interpret this? Tell me in the comments. This would seem to indicate that at least the folks at Fangraphs believe that the Orioles are not as good as the sum of their parts, that the parts are really good, but the sum of the parts only add up to 83 wins. I mean, 83 wins, that's a drop-off from last year of 8 wins. That's a pretty precipitous drop-off when the Orioles are tied for fourth best projected WAR in all of the major leagues. I digress a little bit, but let's get back to who's out there from the free agent standpoint. Now, look, you and I both know the Orioles are not a team generally that's going to give a huge multi-year deal to a starter. But if they were to, there are pretty much 2 guys out there. You have Nick Pivetta out there. Certainly the chatter is he may end up back with the Red Sox. But Pivetta, a decent ERA, a solid starter. Is he going to be your number 1 starter? I say no, but he could definitely bolster the rotation in a fairly significant way. And of course, Jack Flaherty. We all know Jack. Jack has been in Baltimore. Jack did not perform in Baltimore, as we know, but then he did go to the Dodgers and performed like a number 1 starter. He is still out there as well. You notice the ERA just over 3, almost 200 punch-outs in 162 innings. Flaherty, if the Orioles were to pick him up, would slot in as a number 1 starter. And so we come back to this. Are the Orioles an 80-win team, an 83-win team as Fangraphs, or is this man Mike Elias going to make some magic happen over the next couple of weeks? He's done it before, late before spring training starts. He did it with Corbin. Again, we talked about free agents, but if the Orioles are willing to part with some of their young guys, and they have a plethora of them, then there are, of course, pitchers out there that could be available on the trading block. We're talking about Dylan Cease. We're talking about Valdez. We're talking about Castillo. We're talking about guys, again, you're going to have to give up a lot, but they will slot in as 1-year pitchers. And I say 1 year, sometimes 2, but you're basically going to trade prospects for a rental to win this year. So if Mike Elias believes the Orioles can win this year with the pickup of a Dylan Cease or a Valdez or a Castillo, then I fully expect that to happen. I'm Jon Leiberman. This is Orioles Digest. Thank you so much for watching. Comment, and I will see you all very, very soon.